I'm attempting to get Julian out of the ship.
Free Julian. Free the press. Free us all.
Hi, how are you? Welcome to the Essential Channel. I am Isabel Inclán, and today we have a special guest and a special topic to talk. My guests today are the father and brother of Julian Assange, John and Gabriel Shipton. They are the fundamental part of the documentary Ithaca, directed by Ben Lawrence, and who shows the long journey and campaign to free Julian Assange, the founder of Wikileaks. Welcome, John and Gabriel.
Thank you, Isabel.
Welcome, and thanks for your time. John, I'm gonna start with you. When it was the last time you saw Julian, and how was the conversation?
About 5 months ago, Isabel. Since then, we've been on the road in both Australia and the United States. His circumstances are dire, so he's not well. However, his spirit remains strong.
Yeah, I know he's facing a difficult situation after more than 10 years in prison and facing the extradition. But after 10 years in prison, he is accused of espionage and faced extradition to US. His fiancée, Stella Morris, said extradition are 99% politics and 1% law. What can you add, John, about this problem with the extradition of Julian Assange?
Well, it's the law is a veil over a political persecution of a publisher. It's no more than that and no less. It's entirely, in fact, the court case hearing back in September could be characterized as a star chamber, if you like, where in some cases the charges in the extradition treaty had no judicial foundation whatsoever. That was the computer intrusion charge. The other 17 charges are based on espionage, which of course is political, and the treaty between the United States and the UK specifically forbids extradition on political matters, specifically, categorically forbids. And so they continue with this court case despite the quality of the extradition treaty between the United States, as I repeat once again, specifically forbids extradition in political cases. So you can see from that the prosecution of Julian is entirely political and extra-legal.
Okay, and Gabriel, I know you are traveling. You are traveling to Washington now?
Yes, traveling to Washington to speak at a rally in front of the White House.
Okay, and thanks for your time. I know you are on the train now, but my question for you is, Gabriel, there are other cases of whistleblower such as Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning, and even the organization Bellingcat. Why Julian case is different?
Well, Julian is a publisher, and so the whistleblowers you mentioned, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, Daniel Hale is another one who revealed the civilian deaths in the US drone programs under the Obama administration. They are all charged under the Espionage Act, and they all were government employees. So they all worked for the government, and they took information and leaked it to the press. Now, Julian published information provided by leaks. And so this is different in that this is the first time that US secrecy laws are being used against a publisher of that information and not a whistleblower. So it has repercussions right through publishing, through to the First Amendment in the US, and to press freedoms globally, because what is going on with Julian is extraterritorial, in that the US is using its secrecy laws to reach into the UK, where Julian was actually the US is using its secrecy laws to reach in there, and so it could potentially use those laws in any country to punish who say what the government doesn't like. So it's a first of its kind, but it is setting the example of what is to come, what is possible against those who decide, those courageous publishers out there who decide to reveal war crimes or reveal torture or reveal corruption, that this example, the example of Julian Assange, could happen to you.
Okay, thank you, Gabriel. And John, I go back to you. Julian Assange, your son, has won 26 awards of journalists. Is Julian case an attack of journalists, free expression, the right to the public to be informed?
Almost certainly it is, Isabel. And already it's had a chilling effect on the capacity of publishers to publish. I would note here that the 5 newspapers, New York Times, Le Monde, El País, The Guardian Weekly, and Der Spiegel, all signed a letter to the Merrick Garland, who's the Attorney General of the Department of Justice in the United States, asking for the charges to be dropped. The insight into that letter is that it was signed by the publisher of the New York Times, not the journalists and not the editors, because it's the publisher that is being attacked and will be attacked. Julian has faced now it will be 14 years in total of arbitrary detention and jail.
Okay, and Julian case has passed 2 U.S. administration, Donald Trump and now Joe Biden, Republicans and Democrats. His case reflects the power of the establishment of the U.S. national security. What do you think about that?
Can you, was that for me, the question? Or
yeah, the question is, do you think because his case passed, the Republican government and also in US changed the government, now Democrats, but he's still in prison. So do you think his case showed the power of the establishment and the strong power from US national security?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's been the involvement of the FBI 3 times over the period of 14 years. Equally, the involvement of the CIA, which is documented on Yahoo. So 5,000-word essay by Isikoff and Dorfman. So your understanding is absolutely correct. The persistence of the institutions of state, despite the requirements of the new administration, the Biden administration. We hope and look forward to the intercession of the Biden administration, stimulated by the Australian Prime Minister, who has declared that Julian, he cannot see the purpose of this prosecution going any further, and that the matter has gone far enough. In his words, enough is enough.
It's true. It's true. Gabriel, regarding this documentary, Ithaca, that you produced this documentary, and we're gonna see that here in Toronto at Hot Dog Cinema. Can you tell us a little bit why the name Ithaca? And the question is, if you think this documentary will change something to free your brother, Julian Assange.
Well, Ithaca is a poem by C.P. Cavafy, a Greek-Egyptian poet. And we chose the name because when we're on the road, advocating for Julian and fighting for his freedom, it's often a road paved with difficulty, and not everything always goes the way we would like it to. And so at some of those times, at some of those dark moments, would lead to a reading of Ithaca by Sean Connery on YouTube. And it was a way to, gather up the strength and continue the fight the next day. And what Ithaca talks about is the journey. And when you're fighting for a cause bigger than yourself, a cause that might seem unachievable or very far off in the distance, that it is about along the way, the new things that you see in your fight, and that when you arrive at Ithaca, you might find her poor. Don't be disappointed. The poem says, don't be disappointed if you find Ithaca poor, because you have become rich from the journey. So it's really just a summary of any fighting for any cause that is bigger than oneself, that might seem unachievable, but you set out on the journey regardless. It also talks about not being afraid, and when you're fighting an adversary like the US National Security, DOJ, it's very important that you not be afraid, and that you don't let those fears stop you from acting. I hope with Ithaca, we really tried to show a different side of this fight, a behind the scenes, emotional family story, a family that is fighting to free Julian Assange, and a family that is in the center of what is now a global movement for freedom of information, for press freedom, for democratic rights, that has formed around the fight to free Julian. You have parliamentary groups in every major Western democracy, and they're cross-party groups. They're not left, they're not right. This issue affects everybody. It affects everybody's democratic right to know. And so we focused in on John and Stella's emotional journey, and ideally, Pete, we want to open people's hearts, and we want people to connect with John as a father fighting for his son, and Stella as a wife fighting for her husband, and hopefully open their hearts and then open their minds to what's really at stake in the fight to free Julian Assange.
Okay, thank you. And just almost finished, John. In this documentary, the Chinese artist Weiwei said, "The fight tells the meaning." What could you say about this long journey to free your son, Julian Assange? Do you still have that energy? I know you have a little girl daughter, And we see in this documentary that you travel many cities in the world. So what can you tell us as a final remarks regarding Julian work in Wikileaks and the freedom of expression, the freedom of journalists?
Just to sum up and add to what Gabriel said, the Also Ithaca is a story about the return of Odysseus home after the wars in Troy to Penelope. So we can make a romantic parallel, if you like, of Julian's journey home to his wife Stella and his two little children. That's well, to answer your question more fully, well, you know, it would be a disaster for democratic nations, or even those that are not democratic, for the people within those nations to have to be, how do we say, kept in the dark and fed manure like mushrooms. That would be a disaster for the strategic intelligence and understanding that exists within a culture. We must be able to move toward freedom by gathering knowledge. Without knowledge, you're stuck. And so the oppression and chilling of the distribution of knowledge and news and the analysis of news. Of course, news by itself, without analysis and without context, is just noise. But supplying context and supplying the analysis of news is a requirement of journalists, of newspapers, of bloggers, and most of all, of independent news outlets like yours, to be able to give context and understanding to the events of the day is vital to the health of any community, family, and individuals.
Thank you. And finally, Gabriel, I have just less than a minute. And finally, I know you are going to Washington rally. And what can you tell us as a final comment regarding this case, regarding your brother, Julian Assange, something that you're going to say in a few hours in Washington?
Well, just to reinforce the importance of this case in light of the 20th anniversary of the Iraq War, that what Julian exposed and published through the leaks of Chelsea Manning showed the truthful nature of what was really going on in the Iraq War. And to this day, Julian and Chelsea Manning are the only ones who have suffered the consequences for these crimes that have been revealed.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, John and Gabriel, for this time with The Essential. And don't forget, if you want to watch the documentary Ithaca, you can go to Hot Dog Cinema those days on March 19, 20, 24, 25th, and 26th. Thank you so much, John and Gabriel. I send you a big hug for everything to resolve happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, and see you in next program, The Essential.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye. Bye.